Hey guys, Ryan here, and in today's video I want to talk about one of my new favorite sniper supports and one of my favorite SMGs in the entire game, the VEL 46. In this video I'm going to explain what I think is the best build for it. I'm going to explain why I think it's so good, and I'm also just going to be breaking down why I think you should use this gun in particular. Let me pull up the build that I used in this video and the build that I recommend. This build is going to have good recoil control. It's going to be perfect as a more sniper support orientated build, but it also is going to be good for aggressive players because it has good mobility, good ADS speeds, and it's going to be super lethal in the close and the mid range. If you've watched any of my prior sniper support videos, I always talk about how a good sniper support needs to be good in the close range, it needs to be good in the mid range, and it needs to just have an overall good feel to it. And this gun ticks all of those boxes, and after they buffed it in the most recent patch, then this is easily one of the best sniper supports for anyone to use, and I'd heavily recommend it, especially if you're more of an aggressive player. I like to push people. I like to use my sniper to get chunk damage down, to force them into position where they have to plate so I have the advantage and can push up on them, and that's why I like to use my sniper for. And the MP7 or the VEL 46 is perfect for that. This thing is a melt machine up close. It has good enough and low enough recoil to be used in the mid range, but I think the main thing that this thing has going for it is it feels amazing. And what I mean by feel is that encompasses the recoil, the way the damage feels, the fire rate, the mobility. It doesn't feel sluggish, the damage feels good, the recoil isn't abrasive, it isn't harsh, it's easy to control, and overall when I use this thing, it just feels like one of those guns I want to use. One thing in particular I've noticed with this gun is the mobility is probably the best amongst my sniper support builds and the sniper supports I prefer to use, and that makes it especially good in my eyes because I love mobility in general, so that the fact that this gun has good mobility is a massive positive for it in my eyes, and it's something I wish a lot more people would consider in their builds. When I talk about mobility, I mean movement speed, I mean sprint speed, I mean crouch walking speed. I also mean things like sprint to fire time and ADS times, because this gun has that in spades, and this thing is easily one of the most mobile sniper supports you could have while also maintaining a dominant presence in the mid-range, and that's exactly why I'm going to recommend it to you. However, like pretty much every gun in this game, it's not perfect, and there's especially a couple things overall I'd say are wrong with it, or overall negatives you have to consider. The first is going to be, it's not going to be as good in the mid-range as an assault rifle sniper support like the Cast-Off 7.62 or the Hemlock, and there's just no other way around them. Unless you have god tier aim, unless your recoil control is just so good it's unbelievable, you're going to struggle in gunfights, in particular right around 25-30 meters, and that's okay. That's what the sniper's for, but with the lack of one-shot sniping, it's just a weakness overall of running a sniper. However, on the flip side, close range, it can also lose to guns like the MP5 and the Vaznev if they hit a couple headshots. Now that doesn't mean you're going to lose every time, and really the fight is probably going to more come down to if you're pre-aimed, if you're playing properly, but it does need to be stated that this thing isn't as strong as the other meta close range SMGs in theory. But when you really use it, when it really comes down to it, as long as you're pre-aimed, as long as you're a smart player, it's more than strong enough to compete with those guns. You're not going to really lose gunfights you shouldn't to those guns. And the other thing is it's probably going to beat those guns in the mid-range, and that's where its main strength is. Now, as I said before, the real issue with this thing is it's kind of just it's average at everything, or it's above average at everything, but it's not amazing at any one thing, and that is probably its major drawback. But when you really factor in how balanced this gun is, everything else about it, it makes it a clear meta contender and probably the best SMG sniper support you could run, especially if you're an aggressive player. Before this video ends, I want to go back to the build and I want to talk about the muzzle. Now, I do think you can pretty much change anything on this build as you see fit, and you should be doing that in general. And I'm not even going to give you guys my tunings, as I think those are very personal. But for the muzzle, if you want an easy way to have more damage range and more recoil control, switch from the Champeldonf or whatever it is to the X10 FR. It's the very first muzzle. Switch to that and it's going to have a lot better recoil control compared to the Champeldonf. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it. I speak German, or I lived in Germany for a year, so I can speak some German, but I don't even attempt it. I'm not even sure if it is Deutsch. But regardless, this is going to give it much better recoil control. In the background right now, you're seeing it with the first barrel I recommended. And then after, I'm going to switch to the X10 FR, and you can see yourself how much better the recoil control is by just simply switching the muzzle. However, the downside is you're going to end up having a much slower ADS speed, and the gun's not going to feel as good. Now, I stressed that whole feel thing earlier, and by changing these attachments, it's going to make the recoil feel a little better, but it's also going to make the mobility feel a little worse. See, right now, I'm going to switch to this muzzle, the X10 FR. I'm going to go back into the firing range, and you can just almost instantly see how less the recoil is. The thing is a literal laser, essentially, if you switch this muzzle, but it is a lot slower in terms of ADS speed, and that's something you have to really consider. There's trade-offs to building your gun, and you really have to factor all that in when you build a gun, and that's why this is the build that I'd recommend, but you can change however you see fit. I'm going to start wrapping this video up now, but I just want to say thank you guys for watching, and I hope you give this VEL 46 a try. This thing is a literal laser, it is a melt machine, it has great mobility, and the one thing is, if you're at all nostalgic about this gun from Warzone 1 or maybe Modern Warfare 3 back in the day, then maybe consider giving it a try just for the nostalgic reasons, and I promise you're going to end up loving it. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good day. It's been Ryan. Peace.